My wife canceled my return flight and left me stranded in Canada overnight as a prank. She ignored my panic, texted, "That was fun," and laughed when I got home. I didn't argue, I made one call. And her laugh died as her face went white. My name is not important. What is important is that I am the kind of person who keeps a dedicated email folder for travel confirmations. I am the kind of person who triple checks departure times the night before a flight, who maps the fastest route from the hotel to the terminal, who shows up 40 minutes early just in case. I work in project coordination. I manage timelines for a living. I have been described, more than once, as the responsible one. I have never once considered this an insult. Myra and I had been married for 4 years. She is vivid and socially magnetic and constitutionally opposed to boredom in a way that I used to find charming. She cycles through hobbies the way other people cycle through moods, pottery, for 6 weeks, then aerial yoga, then a brief and passionate relationship with fermentation that left our kitchen smelling like a science experiment for a month. She once told me, laughing, that chaos was a personality trait. She said it like it was a selling point. I remember smiling. I don't know why I thought that was something I could build a life around. Then there was the fun squad. Petra Holt, Decker Vane, and Joanna Rill, Myra's core group, the people who had apparently agreed as a collective that adulthood was optional and accountability was for other people. I had nothing against them personally. What I had against them was a pattern, because this was not the first time something like this had happened. 8 months before Canada, Myra and Petra thought it would be hilarious to tell me my work presentation had been rescheduled. It had not been rescheduled. I showed up 45 minutes late to the actual meeting. I lost a contract over it. A real contract, with real money attached. When I brought it up that evening, Myra tilted her head and said, "I mean, you have to admit it was a little funny." Petra said I needed to lighten up. Decker laughed. Joanna was already on her phone. I lightened up. I always lightened up. And the thing about consistently lightening up is that the people around you stop seeing it as graciousness and start seeing it as a green light. Every time I absorbed it without consequence, they filed it away. Not consciously, maybe, but they filed it. So, when Myra suggested a 5-day group trip to Canada, me, Petra, Decker, Joanna, I had reservations. I kept them to myself, because that was what I did. And then, because I am the person I am, I booked all the flights. Round trip, 4 weeks in advance, through our joint account. I organized the confirmation emails into a dedicated folder. Old habit. Someone in that group had to be the one who actually knew where everyone was supposed to be. I had no idea, at the time, how useful that folder was going to become. The last night of the trip, I went to bed early. Petra had found a rooftop bar 2 blocks from the hotel and the group was still going at 11. I said goodnight, went upstairs, and was asleep by 11:15. I remember thinking the trip had gone fine. Not great, but fine. I was already mentally organizing the drive home from the airport. At 11:47 p.m., while I was asleep, Myra logged into our joint booking account from the hotel bar. Petra was there, Decker was there, Joanna was there. Together, and I want you to sit with the word together for a moment, they canceled my return flight. The $847 refund processed immediately back to the joint card on file. 2 minutes later, the airlines sent a cancellation confirmation email to our shared inbox. Myra's name was on it as the account holder who initiated the cancellation. She did not delete the email. She either didn't think to or didn't care to. I would find out later that she assumed I wouldn't check the shared inbox before leaving for the airport. She was wrong about that. At 7:02 a.m., I woke up, showered, packed, and did what I always do before a flight. I opened my email to confirm the departure time. The cancellation notice was sitting right there at the top of the inbox. Sent at 11:47 p.m. Subject line: "Your booking has been canceled." I read it twice. Then I told myself there had been some kind of error. A system glitch, a double booking, something with the account. I called Myra. It went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I texted at 7:04, then 7:09, then 7:14, which was exactly when my gate closed. I know the exact time my gate closed because I was watching the departure board while my phone showed me that Myra was active on her messaging app at 7:18 a.m. Not asleep, not unreachable, active. She saw every single message come through. She made a choice, in real time, to watch them arrive and say nothing. I stood there in that terminal with a dead gate number on the board and the word active on my screen, and something very quiet shifted inside me. I sent the first message at 7:04 a.m. It said, "Hey, did something happen with the ticket?" Polite. Measured. The tone of a man who still believes in system glitches. By 7:30, I had sent 11 messages. By 9:00:43. By noon, somewhere north of 150, I know the exact final number because I counted later, when I was organizing everything into a folder and needed to be precise about what had happened to me that morning. 271 messages. The first one asked about a possible error. The last one, sent at 1:19 p.m., read, "I'm not angry. I just need to know you're not in danger." That was the last one I sent. Not because I ran out of things to say. Because I finally understood that the silence was not an accident. The reply I eventually got was a voice note. Myra, laughing, with Petra audible in the background. I put my phone down and looked at the departure board for a long time. Here is what my situation actually looked like at that point, because I want to be specific. I was in a foreign country with no return ticket, a joint bank account I was now reluctant to touch until I understood what Myra could and couldn't access, had $160 in cash, one personal credit card with a $2,000 to $1,000 limit, and a phone at 31% battery. I was not destitute, but I was precisely as vulnerable as someone had designed me to be. I want you to understand that distinction. There is a difference between being stranded by circumstance and being stranded by a person who had access to your account, your travel plans, and your trust, and chose to use all three of them against you while you were unconscious. Because that is what just a prank looks like from the inside, not a joke, not a bit, but a specific and deliberate removal of your ability to get home. I did not have a word for it yet, but I was starting to build one. International abandonment. That was the word I was building. I found an airport lounge with a charging station, sat down, and did the only thing that made sense. I started thinking. Not panicking. Thinking. And while I was thinking, I decided I needed something official. Something with a name on it that wasn't mine. I went to the airline service desk and asked for the cancellation record on my booking. The representative, her name tag said Madison, pulled it up without any drama. She confirmed the ticket was canceled at 11:47 p.m. the previous night. She confirmed the $847 refund had been processed to the joint card on file. And she confirmed, in the flat, professional tone of someone who has seen everything, that the cancellation was initiated by the named account holder. I asked her to print the transaction log. She did. I folded it, put it in my jacket pocket, and said thank you. Then I took out my phone and photographed it anyway. Old habit. Someone had to be precise about these things. Her name was right there on the printed record. Not a glitch. Not a system error. Her name, her account, her decision at 11:47 p.m., while I was asleep 3 floors above her. That's when it stopped being a prank to me. That's when I started calling it what it was. Myra called at 2:07 p.m. She did not open with an apology. She opened with a laugh, a real one, unguarded, the kind that assumes the person on the other end finds the same things funny. "Oh my God," she said, "I cannot believe you sent that many messages. It was just a prank." I asked her, very calmly, to explain to me exactly what the prank was. She said the plan was for me to panic briefly, miss my flight, and then she would obviously have rebooking information ready to send me. I asked her to tell me when she had arranged that rebooking information. A pause. She said she had assumed Petra would handle it. I asked her if Petra had handled it. Another pause, shorter this time, the kind that means the answer is no, but the person hasn't decided how to say it yet. "Look," she said, "it got away from us a little. Lighten up." She used the word obviously twice in under 90 seconds. She used the phrase lighten up 3 times in under 2 minutes. I counted. I was calm enough by then to count. She told me to just figure out the rebooking and they would sort out the money when she got home. I told her I would need a hotel room for the night since I'd missed my flight. She said, "And I want you to hear this clearly, figure it out." I hung up. I stood in the airport lounge for a moment. Then I picked up my bag and went to find somewhere to sleep. The hotel near the terminal was modest and clean and entirely adequate for a person who had just been told to figure it out by the person who had created the problem. I checked in, paid with my personal credit card, and took my room key up to the 3rd floor. In the common area off the lobby, a woman was sitting at a corner table with a laptop and a coffee, waiting out a delayed connection. Her name was Sarah Morales. She looked up, took one look at my face, and said, "That bad?" I said, "Not particularly," which was the most dishonest thing I said all day. She got me a coffee anyway. It cost $4.50 Canadian. We sat for about 40 minutes and talked about nothing important: her delayed flight, my work and project coordination, a documentary she had been watching on her laptop. She did not ask what had happened. I did not explain. It was just a conversation with a stranger who had decided, without any particular reason, to be decent to me. I remember thinking, somewhere around the 30-minute mark, that I could not recall the last time a conversation had cost me nothing. Not emotionally, not logistically, just nothing. $4.50 for a coffee and 40 minutes of being treated like a regular human being. I went upstairs after that and booked my new return flight. The only available seat on a reasonable departure was the 6:45 p.m. the following evening. The ticket cost $1,100 on my personal credit card. $1,100. The original round trip had cost $847, which was currently sitting as a refund on the joint account that Myra controlled. I did not touch that account. I paid the $1,100 on my own card, received the confirmation email, and saved it to my phone in a folder alongside the cancellation notice and the printed transaction log from Madison's desk. The folder had 3 files in it now. I had a feeling it wasn't done yet. I did not sleep on the flight home. I had a window seat, a 6-hour departure delay behind me, and roughly 11 hours of accumulated clarity that I had not yet done anything with. So I opened my phone, opened the folder, and started building. Screenshot by screenshot, I organized everything into a clean timeline. The cancellation confirmation email, timestamped 11:47 p.m., subject line intact, Myra's name in the account holder field. The 271 message thread, beginning at 7:04 a.m., with a polite question about a possible error and ending at 1:19 p.m., with me telling her I just needed to know she was safe. The printed transaction log from Madison's desk, photographed in the airport lounge, naming Myra as the party who initiated the cancellation, and the new ticket receipt $1,100 on my personal credit card, timestamped the following afternoon, entirely separate from the joint account she had access to. 5 files now. I renamed the folder. I called it Canada. Then I emailed the entire folder to a personal email address that only I had access to. Old habit. Someone had to be precise about these things. I want to be honest about what I was feeling at 30,000 feet over the Midwest. It was not rage. Rage would have been easier. What it actually was is harder to describe, something like the specific, quiet exhaustion of a person who has just watched a very long pattern reach its logical conclusion. I was not surprised. I think that was the part that stayed with me the longest. I was not surprised at all. While I was in the air, Myra was on Facebook. She posted at 8:34 p.m. a casual travel diary entry, the kind she did after every trip. Photos from the rooftop bar. A shot of the 4 of them at some overlook. And then, in the caption, a breezy 3-sentence description of the prank we pulled on my husband as the highlight of the trip. 3 laughing cry emojis. She tagged Petra, Decker, and Joanna. Within 2 hours, the post had 42 likes, mostly from the Fun Squad's extended circle, and a string of comments from people who thought the whole thing sounded hilarious. But not everyone thought it was hilarious. By the time my flight landed, 3 comments from people outside her immediate circle had appeared. Wait, you actually had no rebooking info ready? So he spent his own money to get home? This isn't really a prank, it's just abandonment? The Fun Squad was fighting back in the replies, calling the critics dramatic, saying they were missing the context, which, as anyone who has ever watched an internet pylon develop will tell you, is exactly the wrong thing to say. By the time I got through customs and turned my phone off airplane mode, the post had 73 comments. Myra had stopped responding to most of them. She had not yet realized that the comments were not the problem. The post itself was the problem. It was a public document, written in her own words, describing exactly what she had done. And it was going to stay there, doing its work, whether she watched it or not. By the time I walked through my front door, 73 comments had become over 100. Myra was home. So were Petra and Joanna. The 4 of them were in the living room, and the energy when I walked in was the specific energy of a group that has been waiting for the moment to become funny again. Myra stood up and said, "Okay, but you have to admit it was a little funny." I set my bag down. I took my phone out of my jacket pocket. I placed it on the kitchen table, screen up, open to the cancellation email. Myra's name, 11:47 p.m., $847 refund, right there at the top. I said, "I'm going to need you to look at this." I did not raise my voice. I did not perform anger. I stood there and waited. I showed them 3 things, in order. The cancellation email with Myra's name and the timestamp. The 271 message thread scrolled to the top so they could see 7:04 a.m. and then scrolled to the bottom so they could see 1:19 p.m. and the 6 hours of silence in between. And the $1,100 receipt from my personal card. The room was very quiet. Petra's expression shifted first not to remorse, but to the particular look of someone whose version of events is being interfered with by documentation. Myra's expression I cannot fully describe. It was somewhere between defensive and recalculating. Then Petra said, almost reflexively, "Chaos is a personality trait." I looked at her. I did not say anything. I let the silence sit there with all 5 files in it. Myra looked at the phone for a long time. Then she looked at me and said, "Are you seriously making this into a whole thing?" I did not answer Myra's question that night. I picked up my phone, put it in my pocket, and went to the guest room. I did not slam the door. I did not make a speech. I just stopped being available, which, I would learn over the next several days, was the thing she found most disorienting. The following Tuesday evening, I called a friend who had a legal background. Not to file anything, not to threaten anything, I just wanted to understand where I stood. He listened to the full timeline without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment, and then he said that depending on jurisdiction and the specifics of the situation, knowingly stranding a spouse in a foreign country without arranging alternative travel could constitute constructive abandonment, which carries weight in divorce proceedings. He said the financial angle mattered too. I had sustained a documented loss of $1,100 as a direct result of a deliberate action taken by my spouse using our joint account. He used the phrase, financial harm. I wrote it down on a legal pad. I drew a circle around it. Then he asked the question that actually mattered. "Do you have documentation?" I told him I had a folder called Canada. He said, "Then you're already ahead of most people." I did not tell Myra about that call. What I did instead was go quiet in the way that apparently unnerved her far more than an argument would have. I moved my things to the guest room. I remained polite, civil, present. I just stopped facilitating. No more managing her schedule. No more smoothing over the fun squad's visits. No more absorbing the ambient chaos that had apparently been my full-time unpaid position for 4 years. Within 3 days, Myra had cycled through confusion, irritation, and what I can only describe as the full gaslight register. She told me I was ruining the group dynamic. She said everyone had thought it was funny, and I was being emotionally exhausting. She said I had a problem with chaos. I told her I thought she was right about that last one. On day 3, Decker texted me directly. "Bro, it was just a prank. You're making Myra cry." I read it twice. I screenshotted it. I added it to the Canada folder and did not respond. The folder now had 6 files in it. That same week I called my brother and a coworker I trusted, told them both the full timeline, gave them the dates and the numbers, and asked them to remember it. Not dramatically, just remember it. My brother said, without hesitation, "You're not overreacting." I screenshotted that too, because when Myra started telling her version to mutual friends and I knew there would already be 2 people outside the Fun Squad ecosystem who had heard mine first, with receipts attached. That was not revenge. That was just not walking into the next conversation unarmed. The Canada folder had 7 files now. I had a feeling we were getting close to the part where it would actually get used. Myra's Facebook post had been up for 5 days when the comments stopped being manageable. The Fun Squad's extended circle had moved on by then, but the strangers hadn't. They kept coming quiet, pointed, unbothered by Petra's replies about missing context and dramatic overreactions. Someone asked why there had been no rebooking information if it was a planned prank. Someone else noted that the husband had apparently paid out of pocket to get home from a foreign country while the refund sat in a joint account. A third person used the phrase emotional arson in a comment that got 47 replies of its own. I did not write that comment, but I could not have said it better. By day 5, the post had 340 comments. The ratio of critical to supportive was running roughly 3-to-1. Myra had stopped responding. Petra was still fighting, which was making it worse. The post was doing what public documents do when they contain an honest account of a dishonest act. It was simply existing, and that was enough. I had been watching the whole thing from the outside. I had not commented. I had not shared. I had not done anything except read, and wait, and let the post be exactly what it was, her words, her account, her public record of what she considered a highlight of the trip. I waited one more day. Then I posted a single comment. It said, "For anyone who wants the full context, the cancellation was processed at 11:47 p.m. on the last night of the trip. No rebooking information was ever arranged or provided." I spent 6 hours without a response to 271 messages. The new ticket home cost $1,100 on my personal credit card. I have the airline transaction record if anyone needs it. Happy to discuss. I did not tag Myra. I did not call her any names. I did not editorialize. I just put the numbers in a public place and signed off politely. The comment received 847 likes in 4 hours. It was screenshotted and shared to 3 separate communities I had never heard of. Myra's original post began circulating with my comment embedded directly beneath her caption, her version and mine, side by side, letting anyone who read them draw their own conclusions. She deleted the post within the hour. But deletion is not the same as disappearance. The screenshots already existed in 47 other places, and there was nothing either of us could do about that. She called me that same evening. She was not laughing. She said the comment was a public attack. She said I had humiliated her. She said she could not believe I would do something like this. Her voice had the quality of someone who has spent years being the one who sets the terms of every conversation and has just discovered that the other person is no longer available on those terms. Then the call expanded. Petra joined, then Decker, then Joanna, the full group, everyone talking over each other with the specific energy of people who have just watched a narrative escape their control. Petra said, "Chaos is a personality trait. You have always known that about her." I said, "You're right. I have always known that. That's actually the problem." Decker tried it was just a prank one final time. I let him finish. Then I said, "You canceled my flight home. You stranded me in a foreign country. You ignored 271 messages for 6 hours while I didn't know if I had a place to sleep. And then you posted about it publicly before I did." I just added context. The call went quiet in a way that group calls rarely do. Joanna was the one who broke it. She said, "You're going to destroy her over a prank." I said, "She didn't prank me. She showed me who she was. I'm just choosing to believe her." The call lasted 11 minutes total. I said 47 words. I know both of those numbers because I was calm enough to count, which told me something useful about where I was compared to where I had been standing at gate 22 10 days earlier. 3 days after that call, a process server knocked on my door at 9:14 a.m. on a Thursday morning. I was having coffee at the kitchen table, the same table where I had placed my phone screen up 10 days before, and watched Myra look at her own name on a cancellation record. The process server handed me an envelope. I set my coffee down, read through the divorce petition, and understood immediately what Myra thought she was doing. She had filed it as a threat. She told mutual friends afterward that she expected me to call, to panic, to show up at the door asking to talk things through. She had spent 4 years watching me absorb things and come back to the table. She assumed this would be the same. What she got instead was a man who set the papers down next to his coffee, picked up his phone, and called his lawyer friend. Then he opened the Canada folder and added one more file. The divorce proceeded without drama, which I think surprised everyone except me. The Canada folder made the proceedings move quickly. The documented timeline, the cancellation email, the 271 message thread, the airline transaction log, the $1,100 personal receipt, the screenshots, all of it was complete before Myra's lawyer had finished drafting the initial paperwork. The $1,100 was addressed in the settlement. I did not make it the centerpiece of anything. It was a small number in the context of a 4-year marriage. But I mentioned it because it was the number that had mattered to me, not for what it cost, but for what paying it had meant. It was the price of understanding exactly where I stood. The fun squad fractured quietly. Petra stopped coming around within the first 2 weeks. Joanna followed shortly after. Decker sent one final text. I had no idea it would go this far, and I read it, and I did not respond, because there was nothing useful left to say, and I had run out of patience for conversations that started 10 days too late. A few weeks after the settlement was finalized, I was at my kitchen table with a coffee when my phone buzzed. A message from Sarah Morales. Not long, just checking in, the way decent people sometimes do. I wrote back. We made no plans. It was just a brief exchange between two people who had shared 40 minutes and a $4.50 coffee in an airport lounge, which sounds like nothing until you understand what that 40 minutes had cost me to appreciate. I still buy the same brand of coffee she handed me that afternoon. It is slightly cheaper here than it was in Canada, which is either ironic or just ordinary, and I have decided it is ordinary. Some things do not need to mean more than they are. She called it just a prank. She told me to lighten up. She said chaos was a personality trait and expected me to keep living inside it. I called it international abandonment. She filed the divorce papers first. I had already called my lawyer. The folder is still on my phone. I don't open it much anymore. But it's there, and that's enough.